What is up, guys? James here from the Light of Riga YouTube channel, and in this video we're going to be doing a review of the Celtic Tarot deck. This is quickly becoming one of my favorite decks, so I was very excited to do this review because I want to get the word out about this deck. I absolutely love it. There are some negatives that we'll talk about. This will be an honest review, but this is a deck that's a Rider-Waite-Smith based deck. It's created by Christopher Hughes and it's illustrated by Chris Down, and it's very high quality. I can tell that a lot of love, time, money, energy went into creating this deck. The first thing you're going to notice is the quality of the box. It's like a lot of other tarot boxes, sure. It's hefty, it's durable. It's got a nice description of the deck on the back. And when you open it, it's got that magnetic clasp so that it stays closed. And it has a hefty book to go with it. A very hefty book. This book is thick and it's very colorful. It's got a color image of each and every single card. It definitely is well made, well crafted, and a lot of money went into printing this book, I can tell. One thing I will say about this book is that the description of the cards are not exactly what you would expect. While it looks like there's a lot of text here, it's not too descriptive of how to read the card. It does tell you about reversals, so if you want to learn about reversals, that's good. But for the most part, I would say that you kind of have to know the Rider-Waite-Smith system in order to pick up this deck and read it. I don't think that reading this book is going to tell you too much about the Rider-Waite-Smith system. It just gives a little bit of information on the background of the card. So while the book is definitely high quality with the color images of every single card, I wouldn't say that it's the most comprehensive deck book that you're going to get. There are some spreads in the back. Of course, they tell us about the Celtic cross. Why wouldn't they? Of course. So it's pretty standard as far as deck books go, but you're not going to learn how to read tarot. So if this is your first tarot deck, you might want to supplement your knowledge with some other books or some other videos or however you like to learn. But yeah, the book is great. The box is terrific. I really like it. And like everything else in this deck, the cards are very high quality. The first thing I want to talk about when we talk about these cards is the quality of them. These cards are probably the highest quality cards I've ever used. Okay, they're glossy, but they don't shine and sparkle like other cards do. They don't reflect light, so they're glossy, but they have a matte finish to them. They're sturdy, yet they bend. They're great for shuffling, whether you do rifle shuffling or the overhand shuffle method. I'll do both at the end of this video. I kind of organize the cards in order, so I don't want to mess them up now. But yeah, the backs are kind of simple. I'll give them that. The backs aren't the most complicated of designs, but they get the job done. They're pretty, I guess, but at the same time, they're non-assuming. So I like that about them. And let's zoom in here. What I'd like to do now is take a look at each card one by one and just give you a feel for the deck. Like I said, this is a Rider-Waite-Smith clone. I hesitate to use actually, let's not start there. Let's start over here. This is a Rider-Waite-Smith clone, but I hesitate to use the word clone. Clone implies that it just takes images and themes from the Rider-Waite-Smith and just copies it. This is a Rider-Waite-Smith deck with a very Celtic feeling to it. It reminds me a lot like Druidcraft. It's got a druidic, Celtic vibe to it. A lot of the names of the major arcana have been changed. For instance, we've got the Mother here, and we've got the Father. So, there's simple name changes, but some of these name changes do create kind of a difference in feeling. The Hierophant is the Druid, as you could expect to find in a Celtic deck. So that's another example of the name change. And so yeah, the feeling of this deck is very Druidic. One thing I should warn you about is that there is quite a bit of nudity from both genders in this deck. So I wouldn't recommend this deck for children. I wouldn't recommend this deck for maybe new clients who you don't know. You never know who's going to be put off by nudity. The Hermit is actually Merlin, which is kind of cool, I thought. So yeah, beware of that, you know, when you're posting on social media or whatever you do with your tarot decks. Just be aware that there's quite a bit of nudity. And I personally don't mind it. I think nudity is natural and it shouldn't be something to be ashamed of. But at the same time, you know, when you're reading for other people, some people get kind of caught up with that sort of thing. Don't ask me why. You know, everyone's different. So just to be aware of it, just aware that there's quite a bit of nudity in each of these images, almost in every image. There's also a lot of phallic symbols. I've noticed you can see a lot of phallic symbols. Temperance has been changed to equilibrium, which is kind of cool. I always wondered about temperance. You know, I didn't wonder. I know what it means, but I wondered why it was called temperance instead of balance. To me, that card should be called balance. But equilibrium is a great name for the temperance card, I believe. This is my favorite card. My favorite image is the tower. Look at that. I love that image. This is one of the decks where I don't mind seeing the tower card. And we've got more nudity, of course. The other thing that really struck me with this deck, and kind of the reason why it really resonated with me, is the colors. This deck is so colorful. I just love the vibrancy of this deck, especially when we get into the minors. You're going to see, you know, the suits take on their own color schemes. And it's very cool the way it's done. I like this rebirth image here. I don't know, something about these images really speaks to me. I really enjoy them. You know, my favorite deck of all time is Druidcraft, and I mentioned it already in this video, but there's definite parallels between Druidcraft and this deck. Whereas, you know, Druidcraft are huge cards. In order for me to get the deck the way I like it, I had to trim it, right? I had to trim the borders. So there's no border trimming necessary in this deck, which I really love. I don't know why companies still make borders in 2019. It's crazy to me. We don't need borders, tarot manufacturers. I think borders are a thing of the past. The images just pop on out of the card when there's no borders, right? When you're looking at a bordered card, I feel, this is just my personal opinion, but I feel that I'm looking at a tarot card. When I'm looking at a card with no borders, I feel like I can go into that image and explore that scenery much better. I don't feel like it's something manufactured. I feel like I can be part of it because it's just so much easier to step in. And that's another reason why I really like this deck. One of the ways that I choose to read tarot is that if the message doesn't immediately strike out to me, what I'll do is I'll close my eyes and I'll go into a very quick meditation. I wouldn't call it, maybe not a meditation, but I'll quickly, try to, what I'll do is I'll enter into the image of the card. And when I enter into the image of the card, what I'll do, this is my second favorite image, what I'll do is I'll ask the person in the card what they're trying to say. And that technique works on some decks for me and not so much on others. This is one of the decks for me. Didn't realize we're getting off course there. This is one of the decks for me that really, like, it works. It works big time. So, yeah, I'll just go into the image and I'll ask the person what they're trying to tell me. And it's been great so far. The only reason I feel like it's time for me to do this review is because I've done enough readings, I think, to get a real feel for it. I don't know exactly how many I've done, maybe 50, I guess. So I've finally gotten a feel for this deck. It's actually relatively new. I'm not sure when it came out exactly, but it hasn't been out for too long. Here's an image that I was talking about. A lot of nudity from both genders, so just be cognizant of that. And I was talking about the color schemes of each suit, and here we're getting into the wands, and we're going to start to see a fiery reddish orange hue to the colors of the card. And you know, while this helps you to distinguish that yes, this is a wand energy, yes, this is a fire energy, yes, this is about action and intuition and going forward and doing and creating. It also, you know, it really helps to, for each card, it helps to show you the meaning behind it, right? yes, we can look at these images and say, okay, this is about fighting, right? But when we see this reddish color, we see that there's intensity to it, and we can intuitively feel the meaning a little bit better. I think colors go a long way in tarot, and I think that as far as colors go, this tarot deck does it one of the best. They're one of the best at using color to really bring the meanings to life. Alright, so we got the Nine of Wands. I'm just trying to see if we're still on screen here. Okay, there we go. 10 of Wands, very cool. And yeah, I was just the other day I had the Page of Wands, and I asked her what she was trying to say. It worked out really well. So yeah, the court cards are pretty cool too. They use dragons. I really like that. The kind of the animal that you're going to see throughout the wands are dragons. So definitely it reminds you of medieval times. It really does. But in the same time, it's a fantasy type world. I feel like there's more phallic symbols for you. They're everywhere in this deck. And, you know, it's about creation. They're not just placed there haphazardly. I don't think. You know, they're trying to use these phallic symbols as kind of sending a message of some kind. Here we get into the swords. And you're going to notice the colors turning bleak. They're going to turn gray. They're going to turn muted. And I really like that about the swords, except the positive ones, like the Four of Swords, which I view as positive. Has a little bit more color to it, which I like. But, you know, generally the more negative, I hate to say negative or positive. All tarot cards have a positive side and a negative side. But kind of the more darker swords color, or swords cards have darker colors to them. So I think that's cool too. Very cool. Look at that. Yeah, the Suit of Swords is one of my favorites in this deck. It's like, you know, it's Rider-Waite Smithy, but again, it's really the colors that do it for me. I mean, look at that 10 of Swords. Yes, there's a little bit of graphic violence here, I guess, but I think it really helps to hammer the point home that this is the end of worry, right? Of self-doubt and all those things. So, more dragons. We're going to see dragons, dragons, dragons. I love it. Who doesn't like a dragon or two? A lot of rainbows as well in this deck. And I think all we're missing now are the shields. They did change pentacles to shields. Oh, and cups to cauldrons. I should have mentioned that earlier. Which is fine with me. That doesn't bother me in any way. It's still the same thing. Similar Rider-Waite Smith imagery. So it doesn't hamper the meanings. It does give it its own style, which I like. I've never pulled this card in this deck. That's interesting. This card has never come up for me. That's cool. Yeah, we're getting into the shields here. More earthly tones. We're going to see a lot more snow, you know. The reason I think snow is like an earthly feeling is like snow it's bright, so you see it. It's visual. It's cold, so you feel it, right? And it's very earthly. It really hits the senses. Snow is something that you can't deny, right? It hits all your senses, so it brings you to 3D. It's a very earthly thing. But we're also going to see a lot of greens and blues in the shields cards, in the pentacles, because you know Earth has a lot of different aspects to it, right? It's got nature, it's got clear skies, and a lot of rainbows. You know, it really helps you to know that there's a lot of positivity behind this card when you see a rainbow in this deck. But we're coming to the end here, and the last thing I'll do is give it a shuffle and show you how this deck shuffles. Look at that, beautiful. And there's a lot of imagery too. I mean, we've got a rabbit, we've got flowers, we've got something brewing here. There's a lot for your intuition to dive into in this deck, and I really enjoy it. I can't tell you how much I enjoy this deck. Like I said, there are a few downsides. Let's do a little shuffle now so you can see how it shuffles. Whoops, that was my mistake. Don't blame the deck for that. I was actually looking at the screen to make sure I was in frame. I mean, look at that. And it doesn't bend. So for those of you who like to do the riffle shuffle like me, I'll do it whenever I can. But a lot of decks will warp because of it. But this deck just snaps back into place, yet it still has a bendability to it. So I'm very, very happy about this deck. So that is the Celtic Tarot. I hope you got something out of this review. Let me know what you think of this deck. If you worked with it before, let me know. If you have an opinion on it, if you want to get it, let me know. Leave some comments in the comment section. Tell me how you feel about this deck. And I hope you guys enjoyed that. Leave a like if you did. Happy taroting. Peace.